we had a contentious dialogue.
Well, I
for a
thought you
long
were
time.
a Fed. I
thought you were a Fed.
I was a Fed.
Yeah.
I'm not a Fed. I'm not going after MTG, who's like the most sincere. Like, why not go after Ted Cruz? I don't understand.
With Marjorie, I was a friend of hers, and she spoke at my conference, and then the day after, she pretended like she didn't know me.
Anytime you say a whole group of people is responsible for the sins of some of its members, like, I'm out.
Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes just feuded over the question of why so many people think that Nick Fuentes is a Fed, and also that was implied on Tucker's side as well, most recently on his program. And in this clip, they discuss why Nick Fuentes so often goes after good critics of Israel on the right and why that leads many people to this conclusion in addition to other things. So let's catch it. This is going to be a great one. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton? I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody, because like, what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian. That's why. So I don't, like, why not? Like, I'm pissed at the neocons, very pissed. I've said that a million times. I've been mad since December of 2003 when I went to Iraq. And so, like, I went and asked straightforward questions to Ted Cruz because that seemed like he was a sitting senator who's like serving for Israel by his own description. He seemed like a worthy target. I'm not going after MTG, who's like the most sincere. Like, why not go after Ted Cruz? I don't understand.
Well, again, with Marjorie, I was a friend of hers, and she spoke at my conference, and then the day after, she pretended like she didn't know me. And that was in 2022.
But it's a continuum. Like you said yourself, you showed up in college, like one set of views, they evolve as you interact with reality, as the reality itself changes, as like you learn things, you grow, like whatever, people change.
Well, and look, now that everyone agrees with me, I will graciously forgive them for being
But why
so
make
hostile.
it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make sense, though, if your overarching goal is to undermine Israeli influence in the U.S. government and the Israel First mentality in our government, constantly sending money to Israel, getting involved in Israel's war, starting a new Iran war for that, bankrolling a genocide in Gaza, etc. Why not let those sorts of things slide? Why not, focus your ire on the neocons that want those disastrous policies to continue rather than good critics on the right, even if you have a small personal beef. I've had a small personal beef with many libertarians over what I consider minutia, but I wouldn't just rake them over the coals on the things that they're good on and the things that I purport that they would be good on if they are critics of Israel. So this line of reasoning doesn't make much sense to me, and it would be the thing that you would want to do to drive a wedge down the middle of the anti-Israel, anti-Zionist right. That is why people accuse him of doing that, because he's attacked so many good critics on the right for being anti-Israel in the wrong way.
It's personal. Like, who cares?
It's not personal for me. Like with Marjorie, if she wanted to, be aligned or whatever, I would totally be on board with her.
But where do you disagree with her?
I don't know, because I don't know what her new views are. She's really only come around on Israel this year, and I've been talking about this issue for 10 years. And
right, okay, all right, you win. But like,
no, but it's not. But it's not like that. It's just it feels like BS to me that. And I said this on Twitter the other day. It's like I got treated like I didn't exist.
Right, I get
it. Canceled for 10 years for saying these things, and that's really where all this drama comes from.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's kind of a martyrdom complex, and he was mistreated. He was canceled by a lot of places, debanked, in fact. He showed up on a no-fly list, apparently, at one point. I haven't verified all those claims, but I suspect many are true, seeing as though his accounts have been banned on social media and such. That we know is true. But at the same time, if you're working toward a common goal, why not let that stand? I mean, it doesn't matter how right you were, how long ago, unless you were in a position of power and making that a big issue and driving, the political climate in that direction. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but why wouldn't you just unite with the newcomers to those ideas and to those theories you think are valuable now, rather than just try to push people away because I was right earlier? It doesn't make sense. Pat Buchanan and Ron Paul on the right, despite being right on the Israel question, being non-interventionists that didn't want to funnel endless sums of billions of dollars to Israel, never said, oh, we were just right before all you newcomers that came along board to support this now. No, they joined with them and tried to make that the impetus for political change. It doesn't seem like he is always willing to do that, and that's what's raised so many questions about him from many circles.
A time when there was this intense censorship and nobody was on board with this stuff. Like, again, Marjorie, she fired, one of my people was working in her office. She fired that guy because someone found out that a Groyper was working in her office. And, that guy got his life ruined. And she pretended like she didn't know me and lied and said, I had no idea the conference I was speaking at. She knew exactly what it was. And that's fine. But now that she's on the same page, there's like this expectation like, okay, well, why did you have a problem with her in the past? It's like, because she was on the other team in the past.
Yeah, well, so was everybody.
Yeah, so now
were you. Yeah, so what? I mean, what? Why not? It's got to be bigger than just like us, right? And it's not. I don't think. Well, I'll speak for myself. I don't feel like I'm at war with the neocons or Israel. It's much bigger than that. It's like you want to restore America to a place where your grandchildren would enjoy growing up. That's it.
Yeah.
Totally with Tucker on this one. That's the mentality I would have, and I would welcome on board newfound critics on the right to being adversarial toward this toxic relationship between the United States and Israel. I think Tucker puts it perfectly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and as far as Marjorie...
So it's not who cares. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Okay, lots of people hurt if Dave Rubin called me tonight, which he would never do, though he has my cell, and said, I'm really sorry I called you Hitler. Like, I didn't mean it. You're raising lots of legitimate questions, which I think I sort of agree with or am thinking about in a deeper way. I'd be like, great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
And look, Tucker, that's why I'm sitting here,
Right.
I mean, because we had a contentious dialogue.
Well, I thought you were a Fed.
I thought you were a Fed.
I was a Fed.
Yeah.
I'm not a Fed. But whatever, I don't care what people think.
We showed each other a badge as we know well.
No, but I thought you were a Fed because I was like, why not? It's not cucking to say you're not talking about all Jews when you oppose a foreign policy position. It's not. There's nothing liberal about that. It's just true. That's the Christian position, okay? And two, why are you attacking like the best people and not the worst people?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, he disavowed me for my views on Israel and said I talk too much about white people and Christianity. And to me, that's like a sincere ideological disagreement.
I get it.
And same thing with Marjorie. Marjorie fired my guy. She disavowed me. And, and you worked with Blumenthal on that article, but you called me on the phone and we talked.
Yeah. I mean,
I
was like, from my perspective, this is all so stupid and inside baseball and whatever, but for the record, I was like, first of all, who is this kid? I'm working at Fox News. I'm aware there's an internet, but I'm more out of it than you may appreciate. And I'm like, out of nowhere, attacking this one. I had Joe Kent here to my house and did this interview with him. And I'm always in search of a sincere politician. Don't have to agree on everything, but I really believe sincerity is the whole game. If someone's heart is pure, he will be brave.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And integrity does matter. On that wavelength, I can see why Nick still has animosities against some of these people if they did really, get one of his friends fired or pretended like they didn't know him. On those things, that makes sense. But why drag those people on unrelated issues that you do agree with, like Israel? And Nick has dragged Marjorie Taylor Greene for not opposing Israel soon enough or in the right way. Same thing with Thomas Massey. Same thing with Dave Smith. He's made amends with Dave Smith. Same thing with people like Jackson Hinkle and Daryl Cooper and all sorts of other very prominent critics of Israel, not only on the right, but largely focused on the right. So this is what's inviting a lot of the accusations, like that it's a psyop, if you're here being a disruptor on the first time in my entire lifetime, the first time in anyone's lifetime watching this, where you're seeing large portions of the America First right peel off this Israel First bandwagon. That is what is inviting suspicion from so many people. Not saying it's right or wrong, but that's the case. In addition to what Nick said and did on January 6th, that's the case.
I always have thought that, and it's turned out to be true. Marjorie's a perfect example. And that's all that matters. If you're afraid inside, if you're weak inside, you will crumble when it matters.
Mm-hmm.
So I really felt like, wow, Joe, don't agree with him on everything, of course, but I was like, this guy is really sincere. He's like a good person. And then you show up and you're like, he's a CIA officer and he was a CIA contractor, but like really like crush the guy. And it's like, why of all people, you agree on 90% of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was my view. And I was like, well, clearly this kid's a Fed.
Right. But you didn't know the whole story.
I didn't. Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right.
And look, and now that, and I want to be, I'm not trying to be combative. I think that.
Go ahead. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
Here's what I'm trying to say is now that Marjorie is pushing in the right direction, I absolutely support everything she's saying. And I've not been critical of her at all this year.
That is false. That's not true. He's been very critical of Marjorie Taylor Greene this year. I'll show some examples here. Here's one back from August, early August. This happened August 8th, just 2.5 months ago. He said that MTG blows with the wind. She started out strong, then sold out to Kevin McCarthy in order to get her committee assignments back. Clearly, she isn't satisfied with her new station, so she's jumping on the anti-Israel bandwagon. So it's not just that he's been critical of Marjorie Taylor Greene. He's been critical of her for being anti-Israel in the wrong way. He calls it a bandwagon. But again, this is a place where if you really want to undermine Israeli influence in the U.S. government, you would invite the support of Marjorie Taylor Greene, someone as prominent and well-known as her, to do that. But he constantly tells people that do that they're not opposing Israel in the right ways. And he has various explanations for that. He says it doesn't go deep enough. It's not a serious conviction. And that might be true, but even if it isn't, that's helpful if that's your goal. In this other case here, he blasted Marjorie Taylor Greene just 2 weeks later, about 2 months ago, saying that, she has weak criticisms of Israel. So again, he's not just bashing her on other topics where they do have disagreement. So, apparently he is bashing her for not being critical enough or in the right way or having weak criticism toward Israel. Just take a look at this.
Why do they say it's secular? It's to say we're not criticizing Judaism. That's what that means. Why would you say secular government of Israel? Because if you criticize Israel on its face, you're criticizing maybe the global Jewish community, maybe the biblical Israel. If you're criticizing Israel as a nation, maybe you're criticizing the Jewish people that live in Israel, the people of Israel, the Jews that live there, who might be religiously or ethnically Jewish. By saying secular government and Netanyahu, what all you're saying in the statement is, I'm allowed to have a negative attitude or opinion about a bureaucracy, about an institution, which is secular.
I mean, he goes on and on about this, but again, his criticism is that Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't oppose Israel in the right way because it's not broad enough. She's saying the secular government of Israel and Netanyahu, confining her criticism toward that. But that includes Israel, by the way, which many of its leaders are secular. Netanyahu is generally secular, certainly so. And again, this is just not right, what he said there. It's false, and, it deserves to be corrected.
Because I think that what she's doing is extremely courageous, and I think you're right, she is sincere.
So it sounds like you're, not to put words in your mouth, but your life experience has left you so stung by the Republican establishment, you don't trust anybody, it sounds like.
Well, no, I mean, these people attacked me when the rules were different, and now they got better, and now I'm good with them. I mean, I'm willing to be good with them, but
there is some evidence to suggest that. I'll give him that. He met with Dave Smith despite them having beefs, in the past over this too. Dave Smith not being, anti-Israel for the right reasons. That did seem to spur one of their beefs some months back. He met with him, seemed to have a positive podcast. He's meeting with Tucker Carlson here, despite saying that, he's a Fed And Nick, by the way, did that as early as 2023 on his March 9th podcast. It wasn't just this year, as he often said. He often says, Tucker Carlson attacked him first. No. Watch the America First episode on March 9th, 2023, and he does the same thing back then. That was 2.5 years ago. But he tried to take that slight from Tucker, and I'm not defending Tucker calling him gay and things like that. I think that was wrong, and it didn't even, have anything to do with what Tucker was trying to say at that time. But at the same time, he's trying to take that and become a martyr over it, and it's not, it's not correct. It doesn't fit into the timelines of him attacking Tucker before Tucker attacked him.
I think that, I don't know if Marjorie still has a problem with me or not.
I don't know. I do know, though, and this is the last criticism I will level, and it's maybe not even your fault, but I do know that, the coordinated attacks against totally reasonable questions about what's in America's interest and what's not, those are all coordinated by the Israeli government. It's all come to light now. And they're against me. I've always thought I have the world's most moderate position on Israel. Don't hate Israel. Just don't want to get involved in their wars, don't want to pay for this, don't want to pay for abortion on demand in a foreign country, sorry. When we're cutting food stamps on our own, that's outrageous.
That should be the moderate position, by the way, and his position on that is pretty moderate. It is pretty in line with where most Americans are on this issue, by the way. I'm more critical of Israel than Tucker is, but he's still portrayed as some anti-Semite and some Jew hater for this mentality. And that really says it all, right? That this mentality, you're going to say of all the mentalities out there, the guy that says he actually likes Israel, he just doesn't want to bankroll that country, that's anti-Semitic. You have no idea what's out there if you're levying that criticism. And when people, do that to others that are good, this is not just confined to Tucker on that issue. The same thing. We see the game. You can't just use the anti-Semitic card every single time and expect it to stick. More and more Americans are waking up to that.
Not America First. That's my view. Not embarrassed of it at all. They are totally determined to take me out, I think because I'm reasonable. Who would disagree with that? And call me all these names, the most dangerous anti-Semite, when I'm not even an anti-Semite. And they're not doing that to you. Because, this is my view, and this is not necessarily your fault, but because they're like, Fuentes discredits the reasonable people because he's always banging on about the Jews. And so he makes everyone else look like a Nazi. And so it's like he's playing a pretty valuable role in the same way that Israel has always funded extremism throughout the Middle East, including Hamas.
Well, to disagree to some extent with Tucker, they do call Nick Fuentes an anti-Semite. A lot of them do that very routinely. You haven't looked at Twitter if you think that's not the case. But at the same time, I get what he's saying. He's saying that if, you're lumped together as a critic of Israel and you don't bring it to, it's all the Jews, it's the Jews problem, and, you're with Fuentes, people can just paint that as everyone involved with talking to Fuentes as an anti-Semite. Now, do I think that's true? No. Do I think differences of opinion and why people are critical of Israel deserve to exist and be broadcast and debated? Yes, that is the case. But at the same time, that is what the big criticism from many of people on the right is toward Fuentes, that he takes it to a level that virtually no one on the right agrees with, and you'd only agree with if you believe in collectivist identity politics. And I think Nick Fuentes says, I believe in collectivist identity politics. He does. He believes in, politics that benefit white people. He talks about that a lot. And I believe in politics that benefit white people too, but when that's your top prerogative on the hierarchy of your values, you can see why this is really indistinguishable from the liberal establishment he claims to fight against that says, we're fighting against oppression from whiteness. That's the same collectivist mentality, just on the other side.
Because it discredits the reasonable people. That's a fact.
Yeah. I would just say I disagree. I mean, because you said the other day, they like me. I don't know what you're talking about when you say that, because
I don't know.
Let me just kind of rebut that.
Well, by the way, I'm not saying you have anything to do with this. I'm just saying I've noticed the phenomenon.
Totally. And I just reject that because they have been messing with me for my entire adult life. I mean, the ADL got me banned on YouTube. The SPLC posted my house on their website.
What do you mean posted your house?
They posted a photo of my house on their website.
How can they do that?
I guess that's a free speech thing.
The SPLC posted a picture of your house on their website?
Yes.
When?
In 2022.
Actually?
Yes, they wrote an article. They said Nick Fuentes bought a building in this city. And they said, we interviewed his neighbors and property records reveal this and that. And on the front page, the picture for the article is my house where I live.
And not surprisingly, and probably not coincidentally, there was an assassination attempt on Nick Fuentes' life. That's what happened. That's the truth. And whether you like Nick Fuentes or not, that's the truth. I'm trying to be fair-minded. I don't always agree with Nick, but at the same time, that is what happened to him. Take that for what you will.
That's crazy. And then someone showed up with a gun and tried to kill you at that house?
Yes. So that's why I say, you say, well, they're not doing this to you. It's like the ZOA, the SPLC, the ADL, the Daily Wire. All these groups have been on me for years. So that's news to me if they're really endorsing my activities.
It could just be my perception. But I guess what I'm saying is, as someone who thinks his own views are like completely reasonable, pass every smell test, you could x-ray my soul. I don't think there's a lot of hate in there. And to the extent that they do make me feel hateful, the people who attack me, I do like say prayers about it. We're not allowed to hate people as we forgive those who trespass against us. That's like our core prayer. So I just feel like I don't know. Am I being paranoid? I feel like going on about the Jews like helps the neocons. That's what I'm saying.
Totally does. It totally does. Max Blumenthal talks about this a lot. I couldn't agree more with Tucker's last point. If you talk about this problem being rooted in this collectivist mindset associated only with international Jewry or Judaism, that is destructive. That's a tool that the Israeli regime uses. It's not a tool that, powerful anti-Semites in the United States uses. There are no such thing. You ruin your reputation in the United States by being an anti-Semite. You don't have any power, any prominence, any prestige. What anti-Semites reign supreme in the government? Not Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene, like they tell you. There just isn't any. You're going to be tarnished forever if you actually have an anti-Semitic mindset. And that's what the Israeli regime takes advantage of by pinning all legitimate criticism of Israel on anti-Semitism. So I think Tucker's exactly right there.
What about my views do you think are unreasonable, if yours are reasonable?
I think, again, I don't think it's cucky. I think it's reality to say that guilt is not inherited. Blood guilt is bad. One of the reasons that I'm mad about Gaza is because the Israeli position is everyone who lives in Gaza is a terrorist because of how they were born, including the women and the children. That's not a Western view. That's an Eastern view. That's a non-Christian. That's totally incompatible with Christianity and Western civilization. They say, we're the defenders of Western civilization. Not with that attitude. You're not. Collective punishment is the enemy of Western civilization.
Yeah.
Exactly right, and just as wrong as collective culpability toward individuals that would identify as a group that might have nothing to do with these atrocities. It's absurd to say that the problem with neoconservatism and, Israel first mentality is just confined to Judaism, because so many people that lets off the hook. That lets off, Donald Rumsfeld and Lindsey Graham and Karl Rove and George W. Bush for their atrocities committed in the name of the war on terror, which, let's just be real, if you listen to Benjamin Netanyahu's testimony to Congress in September 2002, it did have a lot to do with Israeli influence. It wasn't the only thing. The neocons wanted that war forever, but it did have something to do with Israel's interests too. So to pin the blame on Judaism when so many, Christian Zionists and, atheists were supportive of that conflict, that it takes away the culpability that they should have for those atrocities. I agree with Tucker completely. Collective punishment, collective guilt, and collective blaming is not appropriate in this situation. It just wasn't. And beyond that, Dave Smith brought up the good point that of all the groups that opposed the Iraq war, none were as strong as American Jews. Opposed that war, above far more demographics than those that didn't. I think the biggest demographic that opposed the Iraq war were Jews.
And so I hate that attitude. It's genocidal. The current claims that I'm a cancer, from Ben Shapiro or whatever, we need to be excised from the body of conservatism is a genocidal position that it basically encourages violence, as they well know. The whole thing I hate. Mm-hmm. So like anytime you say a whole group of people is responsible for the sins of some of its members, like I'm out.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I mean, I generally agree with Tucker over Nick on these things, but at the same time, Nick's emerged. You can't ignore him, and I think Tucker was wise to actually have the discussion with him. Have a discussion over disagreements, and of course, you see all these Twitter Zionist blowhards out there. Tucker's platforming Nick Fuentes. He's just as anti-Semitic as Nick Fuentes. They're both anti-Semites that want to bring down civilization forever. But actually, what's actually useful is if you sit down and talk to these people. That's exactly the strategy, actually, that Daryl Davis, the famous, African-American that sat down with Klan members, actually befriended them over years and years and years, had conversations with them, went to potlucks, shared in cultural activities like baseball, going to their kids' activities and stuff, building friendships with these people. And that's what actually tore them away from their racist mentalities. What do you think's going to happen when all you do is just, try to ignore or try to pin these people as guilty of anti-Semitism? Do you think that's going to constrain anti-Semitism or perhaps encourage it to onlookers that see that you're not ready to argue the ideas and not ready to debate them, as Tucker, to his credit, is here? You're going to get more anti-Semitism, and you're getting more anti-Semitism because of this Israel first mentality where both you conflate Israel, the country, the secular government, with Judaism in general, that's part of the Zionist and Hasbara creed, and you're doubling down on all of Israel's atrocities in Gaza, saying, hey, the kids that died were just human shields, and, Israel has a right to defend itself when they've killed 100 times more people than Hamas has in Israel since October 7th. When you keep doubling down on this type of propaganda and this line of reasoning, it's going to create anti-Semitism. And Israel uses that to its benefit. Again, Max Blumenthal talks about this, he so many times that Netanyahu and the Likudniks use this as a tool. Anti-Semitism is a propaganda tool. It's probably, the most important tool in their repertoire, such that they can pin any criticism of Israel on that and just dismiss it without having to argue it. That's what you're seeing. But I'm glad this conversation took place. I didn't see it happening. I thought these two were too at odds for this to happen, so I'm glad that they got together. There were some moments of agreement, some moments of disagreement. You saw some of that here, but generally I side with Tucker. But I do want to hear from you. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Please let me know who is right here. Is it wrong to push blame on Judaism itself for the vile actions of neocons, some of which are Christian and we're atheists? Let me know in the conversation down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Tucker Carlson here. If you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below. That will help support the channel. I'll graciously appreciate that. And in return, I'll give you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. I'll send it right to your email, no cost whatsoever. That tells the story of how the U.S. went from a decentralized League of States to a centralized world empire that persists in this toxic Israel first mentality. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.